Hello everyone, welcome to the DIY in VR channel. This is Mr. S. This video is brought to you by everestmodel.com, the best scale modeling website in the world.
For a better viewing experience, please put on your VR headset.
Today we're going to build the Nissan Skyline 2000 GTR. This car was produced in the early 1970s and is the first generation of Nissan Skylines. As for many car kits, it has 6 sprues. The reason why I chose this kit is that it has all the engine details. So let's get started. First, I'm gonna cut every single part from every single sprue with a nipper. Actually, except for the clear parts and the chrome sprue, because they don't have to be airbrushed. As usual, I classified all the parts into little bags. Each bag is represented by the color it should be airbrushed. This bag is the XF22 RLM gray. This is the X18 semi-gloss black. This is the X7 red. This is the XF16 flat aluminum. This is the X11 chrome silver. And this is the XF2 white. If you want to know how I decided which color should be airbrushed each part, please refer to the earlier video of Nissan Skyline GTR R34 5th generation. I want to limit the number of parts that are airbrushed. So I'm going to assemble all the parts that should be airbrushed the same color. For example, most of the engine part should be airbrushed in X11 chrome silver. So I'm gonna assemble them together so I can airbrush them in one go instead of airbrushing them one by one. And it's the same logic for the chassis, so most of them are painted in X18 semi-gloss black, so I assembled them as much as possible. The contact point of some of the parts are really small, so to have a strong bond, don't hesitate to use CA glue with a toothpick. Tweezers are very handy to handle small parts. Now we have finished the pre-build process, let's start painting. Personal protection is very important. Here are the gloves, here's the face mask, and I have the spray booth to extract the fumes. If you do a lot of cars, I highly recommend you to buy this paint stand from Tamiya. It's going to be so easy to manipulate the car body. As always, we should start with priming. Let's shake the spray can and we spray with short bursts. And every part that should be airbrushed or spray painted should be primed first. For the parts that are harder to manipulate, I used a wooden coffee stirrer on top of a blue tack, or I used a alligator clip. Now everything has been primed. I put them back to the initial color bags. The main body of the car and many smaller parts are painted in gloss aluminum. I used the spray can to paint the aluminum gloss aluminum color because it's just easier. The engine bay should also be painted the body color, which is gloss aluminum. Many engine parts should be painted the same color too. I happen to have a bright red spray can, so I just painted the red parts with it. Now let's start airbrushing. So many parts are painted using X18 semi-gloss black. I poured the paint into the airbrush and added the Tamiya acrylic thinner using a pipette. Now let's start airbrushing the X18 semi-gloss black. We already painted the engine bay with gloss aluminum, but the rest of the chassis is actually black. So I have to mask the engine bay with a masking tape. Then I painted the rest of the chassis in black. I also put the parts on a paint stand to let them dry. Now let's airbrush the X11 chrome silver. Here's the XF2 white. Here's the RLM gray. After spray painting and airbrushing, Some of the smaller details will have to be brush painted by hand. For example, here is the front engine grille. I painted it with X18 semi-gloss black. Some other details are so small that it is easier to paint with a toothpick. Here's the engine detail painted with X11 chrome silver with a toothpick.
If you like our content, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. You can also visit our sponsor's website, everestmoto.com.
For the interior, let's first do the carpet. For that, I used a PVA glue, aka school glue. Then I carefully spread it using a paintbrush.
I have to spread it until the glue becomes totally transparent and there is no white accumulation left.
Next, I will sprinkle the embossing powder on top of the places I spread the PVA glue. This is how we get a nice carpet. Another interesting feature on cars is the dashboard wood color. For that, I'm gonna give it a coat of Vallejo white paint on the desired area. Then we add a coat of clear orange on top of it. I'm pretty happy about the result. For the dashboard instrument, we're gonna use the decals. So we cut the decals, we dip it into the water, we slide it onto the model, we remove the excess water, and we add our secret sauce, the gauzy agent. It's gonna give the instrument panel a very glossy finish that is very realistic. And here's the result. The engine is another highlight of this model. I'm assembling it using CA glue. It is handy to add little details using tweezers. I'm also adding some bluish and brownish tint using the Tamiya Weathering Master Set D to add the heat effect. Now we can take care of the engine wiring. Here is a picture of the real Nissan Skyline 2000 GTR engine. You can see that the main thing that is missing from our kit is the wires connecting the distributors to the engine cylinders. So first we have to drill out the engine cylinders. I also bought these very thin 0.5 millimeter electrical wires. I cut them into correct length, and I also use my nipper to remove the tip of the rubber cover. I also bought these 0.6 millimeter diameter shrink tube, and I cut little section of it, and I put the shrink tube on top of the wire, and I burned the shrink tube for it to shrink. Now I can insert the wires into the holes I drilled before. I did it for all 6 cylinders, and I used a thin masking tape to tie the wires together. Now I can cut all the wires all at once. I added the shrink tube on the distributor side, and I fixed the other end of the wire on the distributor. Finally, we can fix the distributor on the engine. This is the end result.
Now we're going to polish the car body, but before polishing we should add a coat of clear coat. We can use a spray can clear coat here because the previous layer was also a spray can lacquer. But don't use a spray can lacquer top coat when the previous layer was acrylic. The lacquer will eat through your acrylic paint. Now we can start polishing.
For that, I bought a Dremel rotary tool. It's the first time I use it. I thought the correct procedure was to put the finishing compound on the rotary tool and start spinning. And nothing can go wrong, right? So let's count. 3, 2, 1, spin! I had the finishing compound all over my face. Seriously, You should first spread the finishing compound, then turn on the rotary tool. And don't push the rotary tool onto the body. Just gently polish it. And here is the polished car body. Now it's time to do the final assembly of the car. I'm gonna mostly use CA glue. If you went over the border with the CA glue, we can still use the CA eraser to remove the excess CA glue. I have to assemble elements from the chassis. Here is the interior. Here are the windows. Here's the front grille. Now we can assemble the chassis to the body. As usual, we apply some black wash onto the panel lines. And we wipe off the excess with a cotton bud dipped into the enamel thinner. Et voila, this model is finished.